He slammed the brakes in the middle of traffic, stepped out of his luxury car, and ran straight to a homeless woman digging through the trash. And then, the unthinkable happened. With tears in his eyes, he looked at her and whispered, "You're my mom." But when the DNA results came back, even she was shocked. Stay with us, because this isn't just a story about wealth or identity. This is about a son's journey through secrets, pain, and the miracle of finding the mother the world tried to erase. Asterisk, the streets of downtown were alive with the rhythm of the city horns honking, vendors shouting, and people rushing past each other, faces buried in their phones. Amid the chaos, Derek Langston, 33, stepped out of his matte black Rolls-Royce wearing a charcoal designer suit, his gold watch glinting in the sun. The world saw him as a genius tech billionaire, a man who had turned lines of code into an empire. But no one saw the emptiness behind his eyes. Derek had everything: money, influence, real estate on 3 continents. But there was one thing he never had: answers. Since the age of 7, he knew he was adopted. His adoptive parents had been kind but distant, especially his father, who'd always dismissed the topic. "She left you," he'd say coldly. "We gave you more than she ever could. Let it go." But Derek couldn't. No matter how many awards he won or how high he climbed, the thought haunted him: who am I really? Who gave birth to me? And why did she give me away? When his adoptive father passed from a sudden heart attack, Derek found himself in charge of the entire Langston estate. That's when he stumbled upon an old, locked wooden box buried deep in the home office safe. Inside, wrapped in brittle tissue paper, was a sealed envelope and a black and white photograph. The envelope read, "Confidential, final adoption papers." In it were legal documents from 1992, court approval, birth certificate redactions, and one name that made Derek's heart stop: Mara Langston, marked as biological mother. He turned the photo over. A frail-looking black woman with deep, soulful eyes held a pale newborn in her arms. She was seated on a hospital cot, wearing a torn hospital gown, hair unkempt, but her gaze was calm, even proud. In shaky ink, someone had written, "Mara, 1992, gave everything for his future." There was a letter, too, cold and factual. Due to the death of her spouse in an industrial accident and severe financial hardship, the biological mother has consented to relinquish all rights. Child is to be sealed under Langston identity for full protection. No visitation or future contact permitted. His hands shook. His mother hadn't abandoned him. She had been forced to let him go. For nights afterward, Derek couldn't sleep. His dreams were filled with her face. Why didn't anyone tell me the truth? Was she still alive? Had she waited for him all these years? Determined to find her, Derek hired elite private investigators, combed birth records, hospitals, shelters, even ran searches on the name Mara Langston. Months passed. Nothing. Not a death certificate, not a location. It was like she had vanished into thin air. Then one day, everything changed. It was a chilly November afternoon. Derek had just finished a keynote presentation at a leadership conference and decided to take a drive through the historic district where he'd once interned before his rise to fame. As he idled at a red light, he spotted something: a woman. She was hunched over near a bus stop, wearing an oversized sweater full of holes, a headscarf hiding her graying hair. Her feet were bare. She dug through a trash can, carefully unwrapping a half-eaten sandwich. Derek's heart dropped. It couldn't be. The woman turned slightly, and for a fleeting moment, he saw her eyes. They were his eyes. Slamming on the brakes, Derek threw open the car door and sprinted across the street, ignoring the chaos of horns behind him. "Ma'am." "Wait," he cried out. The woman looked up slowly, confused, frightened. I didn't steal anything," she mumbled, clutching the sandwich. "No, please," he said, breathless. "What's your name?" She narrowed her eyes at the tall, handsome man in the expensive coat. "Why? I need to know," he said, trembling now. "It's important. Do you remember giving up a baby in 1992? A white baby? In a hospital called St. Francis General?" She gasped. "I think no. I know you're my mother." The words landed like thunder. The woman stepped back, her mouth parted in shock. What did you say?" Derek pulled the photo from his wallet, now laminated and creased from years of being folded and unfolded. He handed it to her, hands trembling. She stared at it, her eyes wide and wet. "Oh, my God, it's you, isn't it? Your name, is it Mara?" A long silence followed. Then, in a choked whisper, "Yes, Mara." Derek dropped to his knees right there on the cold sidewalk. "I've been looking for you for years. They told me you didn't want me, that you left me, but I found the truth." Tears poured down Mara's sunken cheeks. "I never stopped thinking about you. They took you away. Said I was unfit. Your father had just died. I was broke, homeless. I had nothing but you. I begged them to let me keep you, but they said you'd be better off without me." She collapsed onto the bench, sobbing. Derek knelt in front of her and took her trembling hand in his. "You saved me. You didn't lose me. I found you." Passers-by slowed. Some stared. Others filmed. But none mattered to him. The next day, Derek drove Mara to the city's most prestigious hospital. A full wellness check was scheduled. At his insistence, she submitted to a DNA test, even though in his heart he already knew. While they waited, he moved her into his penthouse apartment, gave her her own wing. Personal chefs, new clothes, caretakers. But all she wanted was time with him. And then the test results came. Derek opened the sealed envelope in front of her, breath catching in his throat. Probability of relationship, 99.998%, biological. Mother confirmed. Mara dropped the glass of water in her hand. "Oh, baby," she whispered, tears rolling down her face. Derek held her close. "I told you, I knew. And from now on, I'm going to give you everything this world never gave. You." The DNA test was undeniable. It confirmed what Derek had already known deep in his soul. The frail woman he found digging through garbage for scraps was his biological mother, Mara Langston. But the truth hit harder than he expected. As Mara wept in his arms, he saw not just a mother, but a survivor, someone who had walked through fire and somehow lived to tell the tale. And now it was his turn to carry her. The very next morning, the headlines exploded. Tech billionaire claims homeless woman as long-lost mother. DNA confirms it. From streets to suites, Derek Langston reunites with birth mom after 32 years. Some praised him. Others questioned his motives. But Derek didn't care, because something had shifted inside him. "Your room is this way," Derek said softly, opening the door to a lavish suite inside his multi-million-dollar high-rise apartment. The walls were painted soft beige, accented with gold trim. A chandelier glittered overhead, casting a gentle glow. The bed looked more like a cloud than furniture. Mara stepped in slowly, clutching the ends of her second-hand cardigan. Her bare feet patted across the plush Persian carpet like a child afraid to wake a sleeping dream. I don't belong here," she whispered. Derek turned to her, voice steady. "You belonged here long before I did." He had her size measured while she slept. Now hanging in the walk-in closet were silk blouses, cashmere sweaters, and sensible flats. On the vanity, fragrant creams, old-fashioned rose-scented lotions, and even a framed copy of the photo that brought them together. "Sit," he said gently, helping her into the armchair by the window. They sat side by side, looking out at the skyline. The sun was setting, casting golden reflections off the skyscrapers. A silence fell between them, but it wasn't awkward. "It was sacred." Then Mara whispered, "You grew up rich?" Derek nodded. Rich in everything but love, her eyes shimmered. I thought about you every night, you know. Wondered what you looked like, prayed you'd forgive me one day. I forgive you, he said without hesitation. But you need to forgive yourself too. In the days that followed, Derek canceled meetings, skipped red carpets, and worked from home. Every morning, he and Mara would have tea on the balcony. She told him stories he never knew about his father, a steelworker who died in a factory. Fire, about the one-bedroom apartment where she rocked baby Derek to sleep. About the day she walked into the courthouse in worn shoes and trembling hands, signing her son's future away with the ink of desperation. They said I could write you a letter. So I did, she said one morning. His eyes lit up. Where is it? Her voice cracked. They never let me send it. Tore it in half right in front of me. Derek clenched his fists. The bitterness he'd carried for years had a new target, not his mother, but the system that robbed them both. But rebuilding. Trust wasn't as easy as moving into a penthouse. One night, Derek heard soft crying coming from Mara's room. He opened the door gently. She was sitting at the window, still dressed, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. What's wrong? He asked. I'm scared I'll wake up tomorrow and this will all be gone, she whispered. That I'll be back on that sidewalk, hungry and invisible. He walked over, knelt in front of her, and took her hands. This isn't a dream. And if it is, then we're dreaming together. I'm not leaving you, Mom. The word Mom made her lip quiver. She hadn't heard it in decades. Later that week, Derek took her to his company headquarters. This is where I work, he said. Proudly as the automatic glass doors opened into a marble-floored lobby, executives in suits turned, jaws dropping. None of them had ever seen Derek bring family before. He walked slowly, arm in arm with Mara, who wore a navy blue dress, her hair braided and neat. She looked 10 years younger. This is the woman who gave me life, Derek said, his voice firm. So show her the same respect you show me. Applause erupted. That night at a private dinner on the rooftop, Derek stood up to make a toast. I've spent my life chasing success. But I was always running from something too. I thought I could buy peace, but I never could because I didn't know who I was. Now I do. He raised his glass toward Mara, who sat beaming, pride glowing from her like sunshine. To the strongest woman I know, my mother. The guests stood, glasses raised, wiping tears. A few whispered, that's what love looks like. But life was not done with its twists. A few days later, while organizing old donations to give away, one of Derek's staff came across a wrinkled yellow envelope tucked into the folds of Mara's old sweater. They brought it to him. Inside was a letter handwritten, dated 1992. To my baby boy. They say I can't see you again, but I'll never stop loving you. I don't care what name they give you, you'll always be mine. I pray you grow up strong, kind, and that you never forget the love that let you go. Mom, tears streamed down Derek's cheeks. He ran to Mara's room, the letter clutched. In his hand, you wrote this, he said. She looked at the envelope and gasped, her hands trembling. They said they threw it away. They didn't. It stayed with me. Somehow it stayed. They embraced again, tighter than before, their bond now sealed not just by DNA, but by destiny. Mara didn't just find a home. She found redemption. Derek didn't just find his mother. He found the missing half of his soul. And in a world obsessed with status and wealth, a homeless woman and a billionaire prove that the richest treasures are the ones buried deep in the heart. Asterisk fame had followed Derek Langston for most of his adult life. But when the world saw the moment he reunited with a forgotten beggar woman, his biological mother on the street, it wasn't tech genius Derek Langston they saw. It was a boy who had found his home in a pair of trembling arms. The cameras eventually moved on. The headlines faded. But what came next was far more difficult than any media storm. It was healing. and healing, as Derek learned, didn't come with PR teams, private chefs, or luxury suites. It came in the quiet, uncomfortable spaces where pain still lived. Mara had now been living with Derek for nearly 3 months. The weight she'd lost on the streets was returning. Her hair had regained a bit of its luster. Her cheeks had a healthy pink to them. Yet some wounds don't show on CT scans or blood tests. One morning, as Derek entered the kitchen where his chef prepared a gentle breakfast for Mara, banana pancakes, just the way she liked them, he overheard her whispering to herself. She sat at the table, hands folded tightly, eyes locked on the food. Don't eat it all too fast. Save some for later. You don't know when you'll eat again. The words crushed him. He walked in quietly and said, Mom, you can have as much as you want. This is your home now. She looked up, blinking like someone startled awake. I know, it's just... The old habits don't leave so quickly. That week, Derek made a bold decision. He didn't just want to rescue Mara. He wanted to honor her dot, so he took her back to where it all began, the Southside neighborhood where she raised him for the first months of his life. They walked past shuttered shops, rusting fences, and graffitied walls. Some faces lit up in shock, others in disbelief. One elderly man, seated on a wooden crate, recognized her. Mara? He whispered. Girl, you still alive? She smiled softly. Barely, but yes, the man turned to Derek. You her boy? I am, Derek said proudly. Tears filled the old man's eyes. She loved you so much. Told everyone you were going to change the world. We just didn't know you'd grow up to own it. That night, Mara pulled out a weathered photo album she had somehow kept through all the years, tucked away in a broken backpack. Most of the photos were black and white. A few color ones faded from sun and time. In one picture, a young Mara stood beside Derek's father, a tall black man with oil-streaked hands and tired eyes. Your father, Clarence, she said. He died when I was a baby. Derek replied, quietly. He died a hero, she said. There was an explosion at the steel plant. He got others out before it collapsed on him. I was 2 months pregnant with you. Derek stared at the photo. He looks brave and exhausted. Mara chuckled. He was both. He used to say, the world don't give you nothing, so you fight for what you love. He loved you, even if he never got to hold you. That night, Derek placed that photo on the mantel, beside the DNA test result and the letter she had written him all those years ago. As the months passed, something unexpected began to happen. Mara began to dream. Again, she asked Derek for a notebook and some pens. Why? He asked. I used to write. She smiled. Before the world got too loud, she began to journal, then to write poems. One day, Derek walked past her door and heard her reading aloud softly. They told me I lost him, but time brought him back, from boardrooms and jet planes, to a simple mother's lap. I gave him away to save him. Now he saves me with grace. A son not just in blood, but in soul, time, and place. He stood there for a while, tears gathering silently, but not everyone celebrated Mara's return. One night at a gala, a longtime board member approached Derek privately. She's a sweet story, the man said, sipping his whiskey. But don't you think bringing your mother's background into your world might dilute your image? Investors, you know. Derek smiled coldly. You're right, my image will change. The man looked satisfied. Derek continued. It'll improve, because the only thing stronger than a billion-dollar brand is a mother who survived the streets for her son. And just like that, the man was dismissed. Soon after, Derek announced a new foundation, the Mara Langston Initiative, a multi-million-dollar organization dedicated to providing shelter, healthcare, and dignity for single mothers and homeless women across the nation. Reporters swarmed. Mara, how does it feel to have a foundation named after you? She smiled. Like I finally matter again. Derek added, every woman like my mom deserves to be seen, to be believed, This isn't charity, it's justice. One night, Derek received a phone call that an adoption agency worker from decades ago had tracked down a missing piece of the story. They had discovered that Mara had written 2 letters in 1992. The second one was never delivered. It had been lost in storage. The agency mailed it to him. Derek opened the brittle envelope and read, "My dear son, if you ever find me, just know I never stopped loving you. If you don't find me, I pray you never hate me. I love you until my last breath. I may be gone, but if someone reads this to you one day, just know, I never gave you up. I gave you everything I had, Mom." He folded the letter, placed it beside her bed, and waited for morning. The next day, as the sun rose over the city, Derek walked into her room and found Mara awake, sitting by the window again. "I have something for you," he said. He handed her the old letter. She read it slowly, tears forming at the edges of her eyes. "I didn't think anyone would ever see this," she whispered. "I was meant to," he replied. She looked at him, voice trembling. "Do you really believe I did the right thing back then?" Derek sat beside her and held her hand. "You did the hardest thing, the bravest thing. And somehow, love brought us back together. From the rubble of a broken past, a mother and son were building something new, not built with concrete or contracts, but with forgiveness, resilience, and love. And the world, once cold and distant, was finally learning to listen." It was exactly 1 year since Derek had slammed the brakes in the middle of that downtown street and called out to a woman the world had forgotten. 1 year since he found her, his mother wearing tattered shoes and holding a hunger rack. And now she stood on a stage, her figure straightened by dignity, not circumstance. Cameras flashed. Reporters waited. The auditorium was packed. On the backdrop behind her, in bold golden letters glowed, "The Mara Langston Initiative, first annual gala." She didn't wear silk or diamonds, just a navy dress and a simple gold pin shaped like a heart. But to Derek, she looked like royalty. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host announced, "please welcome the woman who inspired a national movement, Mara Langston." Mara walked to the podium with quiet grace. Her hands trembled, but her voice did not. "For most of my life," she began, "I was invisible. I didn't have a voice in boardrooms or on stages. I didn't have a seat at the table. I didn't even have a roof over my head. I only had one thing, a dream that the son I gave up would forgive me." The audience leaned in, but when I was sleeping on a bench outside a liquor store, I never imagined that son would become the man who built this building, who brought me home, who gave me my voice back. She paused. "I didn't raise him, but I birthed him into the world with a heart full of hope. And somehow that hope carried him and me through the impossible." Tears welled in the crowd. CEOs, politicians, and celebrities wiped their eyes. Some clapped. Others stood in silence, overcome. Mara ended with the words that would be quoted for weeks. "Every woman sleeping on a sidewalk has a story, and some of those stories are filled with heroes wearing broken shoes. Don't overlook them. They may be someone's mother, someone's miracle, or someone's beginning." After the event, Derek wrapped her in a hug. "You were incredible," she grinned. "Still not sure how I made it through without fainting. You've faced worse than a microphone." He smiled, and he was right, because the journey back from nothing wasn't about stages or spotlights. It was about restoring what had been stolen bit by bit, memory by memory. But life had one more surprise waiting. A week later, Derek received a phone call from a woman named Grace, who ran a shelter Mara once frequented. She spoke with a warm, trembling voice. "Mr. Langston, I'm not sure if this matters anymore, but your mother, well, back then, she used to talk about a daughter." Derek froze. "A daughter?" "She came in one rainy night, holding a picture of 2 children. She said one had been taken, the other she left at a church doorstep. That child was a girl. Derek couldn't believe what he was hearing. Do you know where she is? She was adopted. 2. We lost track, but I thought you should know. Your mother never stopped trying to hold on to what little she had. That night, Derek sat with Mara by the fireplace. He gently placed the old photograph on her lap. Mom, Grace from the shelter called. She said you once had a daughter. Mara's hands trembled. I never wanted to tell you. I didn't want you to think less of me. I had her after I lost you. I was living in a shelter. I was sick. I couldn't keep her safe. She stared at the fire. I wrapped her in a blanket, tucked a note inside, and left her at St. Helena's Church. I went back the next day, but she was gone. Adopted, they said. No trace left. Derek took her hand. Then we'll find her. It took months. Private investigators combed through church records, closed adoption agencies, even DNA ancestry databases. And then it happened. A young woman named Ava Monroe, a children's literature teacher in Oregon, received an unusual email from a firm handling Derek's search. A match had been made. At first, she didn't believe it. But when she saw the DNA confirmation, her knees buckled. She had been adopted too, always felt misplaced in the world, and now she had a mother, a brother, a story waiting to be told. The reunion was quiet, held in Derek's private garden under the shade of jacaranda trees. Mara wore a soft yellow shawl. Ava arrived holding a small book she'd written for her students titled The Girl Who Waited. She stepped through the garden gate and locked eyes with Mara. They didn't speak at first. They simply ran to each other. A sob escaped Mara's chest as she clutched her long-lost daughter. You're real. Oh, you're real. Ava cried too, whispering into her shoulder. I waited. I always waited. And somehow you came. Derek stood quietly nearby, tears filling his eyes. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just a son. He was a brother. That night, around the dinner table, Ava on one side, Mara on the other, Derek raised a glass. We were broken pieces, scattered across time. But love brought us back. Mara smiled, squeezing his hand. Ava nodded, tears shining. We're not lost anymore, she whispered. Epilogue. A year later, the Langston Foundation launched its first nationwide campaign titled Mothers Matter. In Mara's name, thousands of women found shelter, safety, and second chances. Ava became the foundation's director of community education. Derek funded homes, rehab centers, and scholarships for children of single mothers. And on the wall of every center, engraved in gold, were the words Mara once whispered in the dark. They said I lost him, but love found him. And he found me too. Because this wasn't just the story of a billionaire and a beggar. It was the story of how one act of courage, one slam of the brakes, and one whispered, "You're my mother," rewrote the future. Forever. The end.